In 1961, Carroll Shelby walked into General Motors with a simple request. He had a lightweight British chassis sitting in a shop in England, and he needed a Chevy small block to drop into it. Shelby had already won Le Mans. He knew engines. He knew what worked. And he told GM's people that if they gave him those motors, he would build them a car that could crush everything in sports car racing worldwide. General Motors said no. And then Carroll Shelby walked to Ford, told them he could build something that would blow the Corvette off every racetrack in America. And Ford handed him everything he needed. Within 2 years, the car Shelby built with Ford's engines was destroying Corvettes so badly that GM's own chief Corvette engineer launched a secret program to build the most powerful Corvette ever created. 550 horsepower, 1,900 pounds. A car so violent at speed that no driver who ever sat in it could honestly say they had full control. Then GM's top brass ordered those cars destroyed. Only 5 survived. Today they are worth around $8 million each. And the engineer who saved them did it by hiding them from his own company. How does a man working inside the largest company on earth pull off something like that and get away with it? Carroll Shelby was born in Leesburg, Texas in 1923, the son of a rural mail carrier. He had a leaky heart valve from childhood that would follow him his entire life. After a failed chicken farming business, a friend invited him to race a borrowed MG, and Shelby turned out to be shockingly fast. By the mid-50s, he was racing all over the world, showing up to victory podiums in striped bib overalls like he had just wandered in from a barn. Sports Illustrated named him Driver of the Year twice. In 1959, he co-drove an Aston Martin to victory at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, popping heart pills under his tongue between stints to keep his failing heart from stopping. His doctor told him one more season would kill him. He retired in 1960. Shelby's next move was the one that changed American racing forever. He knew the British company AC Cars had just lost its engine supplier. He knew their Ace chassis was light, nimble, and begging for more power. His idea was almost stupidly simple. Take that featherweight British body, stuff an American V8 inside it, and go hunting. After GM turned him away, Shelby pitched Ford with one promise. His car would blow the Corvette off every racetrack in America. Ford signed on the spot. The first prototype, CSX 2000, was finished in January 1962 with a Ford 260 cubic inch V8 crammed into the AC chassis. The crew dropped the engine in under 8 hours. The finished car hit 60 miles per hour in 4.2 seconds and topped 153. Those numbers made the production Corvette look like it was standing still. Shelby called his car the Cobra. It weighed about 2,100 pounds. The Corvette Stingray weighed 3,200. That 1,100-pound gap was not a crack. It was a canyon. And when Dave McDonald and Ken Miles swept the races at Riverside in February 1963 in a crushing 1-2 Cobra finish, the message to Chevrolet was impossible to miss. McDonald had been Chevy's top Corvette racer. Shelby had stolen him. The Cobra was not just faster, it was taking Chevrolet's own people. On the other side of this war stood a man who had escaped things far worse than a racing rival. Zora Arkus-Duntov was born on Christmas Day, 1909, in Brussels, to a Russian Jewish family. He grew up in Leningrad and Berlin, earned an engineering degree focused on making engines faster, briefly worked with the Mercedes Grand Prix team, married a Foley's-Burger dancer, and fled Nazi-held Europe through Spain in 1941. In New York, Duntov designed the legendary Ardun overhead valve cylinder head swap for the Ford Flathead V8. He raced at Le Mans 4 times. Then, in January 1953, he walked into the GM Motorama in New York and saw the Corvette prototype for the first time. It was gorgeous and mechanically awful, powered by a wheezy 6-cylinder bolted to an automatic transmission. Duntov looked at that car and saw everything it could be if someone with real nerve got their hands on it. He wrote to Chevrolet chief engineer Ed Cole, enclosed a paper on how cars behave at high speed, and got himself hired on May 1st, 1953. Within months, he wrote an internal memo that became famous, arguing that if Chevrolet wanted to sell fast cars, Chevrolet had to win races. That memo became the driving idea behind the Corvette program for the next 20 years. Duntov brought the small block V8 to the Corvette. The famous Duntov cam came next. Speed records fell at Daytona and Pikes Peak. He brought Rochester fuel injection to the car, and his belief never wavered. The only way to sell a sports car was to race it and win. There was just one problem. General Motors would not let him race. In 1957, the Automobile Manufacturers Association passed a rule banning factory-backed racing. The ban was partly a response to the Le Mans disaster of 1955 that killed 83 fans. and partly an attempt to cool down the Detroit horsepower wars before the federal government stepped in with new laws. GM's chairman pushed for it, and GM enforced it like a prison sentence. The double standard was incredible. In June of 1962, Henry Ford II officially pulled out of the AMA agreement and launched Ford's Total Performance campaign with full factory racing across every major series. Chrysler followed right behind. Even Pontiac, technically a GM division, had secretly won 30 of 52 NASCAR races in 1961 with their Super Duty engines. Everybody was cheating. Everybody except Chevrolet. GM's chairman Frederick Donner was a money man, not a car man. His thinking was simple. General Motors did not exist to make cars. It existed to make money. His president, John Gordon, once blocked Buick from bragging about a durability run because it might look too much like racing. These were the men controlling the fate of the Corvette. And while they sat in boardrooms on the 14th floor of the GM building in Detroit, Carroll Shelby's Cobra was making their top sports car look slow on every racetrack in America, backed by the full money and muscle of the Ford Motor Company. Duntov's response was to go underground. He found his partner in Seaman Bunky Knudsen, the new Chevrolet general manager who had already brought Pontiac back to life through secret performance programs. Knudsen gave Duntov a hidden budget and a windowless workshop tucked away in a back hallway of the Chevrolet Engineering Center in Warren, Michigan. They called it Project Mongoose. Because the mongoose is the only animal on Earth that hunts cobras, the plan was to build 125 lightweight racing Corvettes, enough to meet FIA rules that required a minimum production run before a car could race in the Grand Touring class. The cars would officially be sold to private racers, giving Chevrolet a built-in cover story under the AMA ban. Public launch was set for January 1964. What came out of that secret workshop was unreal. Starting from the C2 Stingray platform, Duntov's team basically built a purpose-built race car wearing a Corvette costume. They swapped the standard fiberglass body panels for hand-laid fiberglass so thin that the men who handled them said the panels felt like tissue paper. They rebuilt the steel inner structure entirely in aluminum, replaced all glass with plexiglass, and stripped the interior down to bare fiberglass with blue carpet and a wood steering wheel. The finished car weighed around 1,900 pounds. The production Stingray weighed 3,200. Duntov had cut over 1,200 pounds. The engine was even more impressive. Duntov personally designed the cylinder heads for an all-aluminum 377 cubic inch small block V8 with Hemi chambers. 4 twin-throat Weber-side draft carburetors fed the fuel. The power output was around 550 horsepower at 6,400 RPM. In a car that weighed less than a modern Mazda Miata, that works out to roughly 3.5 pounds per horsepower. The Cobra sat at around 6.4. On paper, nothing on earth could touch it. Girling disc brakes went on all 4 corners, 2 years before disc brakes reached the production Corvette. Halabrand magnesium knockoff wheels, an aluminum steering box, drilled control arms, a fuel tank big enough for long-distance racing at 36 to 46 gallons. Everything about this car said one thing: this is a weapon, and it was built for one target. The first Grand Sport, chassis 001, it was finished in late 1962 and trucked to Sebring for secret testing in December, running a modified 327 since the aluminum engines were still being worked on. It posted lap times within seconds of the track record. Word got out. On December 19th, 1962, Bunky Knudsen made the long walk to the 14th floor of the GM building to ask Chairman Donner for a Corvette pass on the racing ban. Donner said he needed time to think. His answer came back fast: no. In early 1963, Donner sent out a company-wide order shutting down every GM racing effort. Chevrolet pulled the FIA racing paperwork. Engineers removed the aluminum engines from the cars. The Grand Sports disappeared into the back corners of Chevrolet's research center. Duntov had 5 finished cars and a direct order to stop. This is the moment where a company man would have obeyed. Duntov was not a company man. He found a loophole. The order said, stop building cars. Nobody said anything about the 5 that already existed. Duntov began quietly moving them out of GM's reach. Chassis 003 went to Dick Doan, an Illinois Chevy dealer and racer. Chassis 004 went to Grady Davis, a Gulf Oil executive who did some racing on the side. The rest of the cars passed through John Mecom Jr., a 22-year-old Houston Oil heir with a racing team who served as the front man to keep up the story that these were privately owned cars with no factory ties. The Grand Sport's most dramatic chapter happened in the Bahamas, December 1963. In open defiance of everything management had ordered, Duntov secretly called the privateer cars back to Chevrolet for upgrades. flared fenders for wider wheels, cooling vents for the brakes, and the 377 cubic inch aluminum V8 engines were finally installed. 3 Grand Sports shipped to Nassau for Speed Week entered under Mecom's name. A group of Chevrolet engineers just happened to pick the Bahamas for a 1-week vacation. The driver lineup read like an American Racing Hall of Fame: Roger Penske, Jim Hall, Dick Thompson, John Cannon, Augie Pabst. Hall and Thompson put 2 Grand Sports on the front row for the Tourist Trophy. Both cars retired with overheated differentials. Then a GM engineer, officially just a tourist, happened to have brought along differential coolers that he kindly loaned to the privateer team. With the cooling problem fixed, the Grand Sports showed what they could really do. In the Governor's Cup, Penske finished 3rd overall, ahead of every Cobra on the grid. In the 252-mile Nassau Trophy, Thompson finished a strong 4th. The Grand Sports were 10 seconds a lap faster than the Cobras. The Chevrolet crew won so easily that there was visible shame among the factory people, who had hoped the trip south would go unnoticed. At the same time, they could not stop smirking. If you're finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I cover forgotten and rare classic American cars every week. So, here is where things get truly messy. Shelby had brought something to Nassau too. A 390 cubic inch Ford big block Cobra driven by Ken Miles. Miles sandbagged in qualifying, then blew past the Grand Sports on the opening lap with a crazy straightaway lead. The car broke down with failed brakes before it could finish, but the message was clear. The 427 Cobra was coming, and the arms race was about to heat up. Duntov then did something nobody can explain. He sent an internal memo on December 16th bragging about the Nassau results and noting that Ford had known about Chevrolet's part in it for over a month. Think about that from Donner's side. The project you ordered shutdown was recently racing at full strength, in front of everyone, and your rivals across town knew about it for a month before you did. Donner's response was final. He called Bunky Knudsen back to the 14th floor. The order this time left no wiggle room. Chevrolet's role in racing ends completely. Donner may have ordered the cars burned. 1 Grand Sport was reportedly set on fire outdoors, before cooler heads pointed out that burning all 5 would bring the local fire department. Whether that truly happened or not, Duntov refused to go along with it. He stashed the 2 Roadsters inside GM buildings where they would not show up again until 1966. He pushed the 3 coupes into private hands where GM could not reach them. 5 cars survived a direct corporate death sentence because one engineer decided his cars mattered more than his career. The tragedy of the Grand Sport is not just the shutdown. It is that only 5 cars existed, which was far short of the 125 needed for FIA GT class approval. The rules said you had to build that many before your car could race as a production Grand Tourer. That meant the Grand Sports could never race in the class they were designed for. They were forced into prototype classes, fighting purpose-built race machines like the Chaparral and Maserati Birdcage that they were never meant to compete against. Even fighting out of class, the results were remarkable. Dick Thompson, the Washington, D.C. dentist known as the Flying Dentist, scored the Grand Sport's first victory at Watkins Glen in August 1963. He would later consider it the best car he ever raced. At the 12 Hours of Sebring in March 1964, Roger Penske and Jim Hall took chassis 005 to first in the prototype GT class. Penske led the opening lap so hard that he blew past John Surtees in a Ferrari prototype like Surtees was parked. A.J. Foyt, driving chassis 003, started 62nd due to qualifying problems and passed 50 cars on the first lap alone. At Nassau Speed Week 1964, Penske came back and won everything. The Tourist Trophy, the Nassau Trophy feature. Ken Miles' big block Super Snake Cobra broke down while leading, and Penske ran away with both races. The Grand Sport's one deadly flaw was how air moved over the body. Above 150 miles per hour, the front end got dangerously light. Under full throttle, the nose would lift off the ground like a dragster. Delmo Johnson, who logged more seat time in Grand Sports than almost anyone, was clocked at 205 miles per hour in Mexico, with the front wheels off the road from 160 upward. Every driver who pushed the car to its limits agreed on one thing. Nobody ever had full control of a Grand Sport at top speed. Anyone who said otherwise was lying. Every Grand Sport that raced also had its hood taped down to keep it from peeling off at speed. These were cars running at the ragged edge of what physics would allow, driven by men who understood that the line between winning and dying was measured in inches and luck. All 5 cars survived to the present day, scattered across private collections and museums. Chassis 001 is owned by Cincinnati collector Harry Yagi, bought in 2002 for a reported $4.2 million. Chassis 002 sits in the Simeone Foundation Museum in Philadelphia, the only original unrestored Grand Sport in the world, still wearing its 1966 racing scars. At a 2009 auction, bidding on that car reached $4.9 million without meeting the reserve. Chassis 004 lives at the Revs Institute in Naples, Florida. Chassis 005 belongs to former Corvette engineer Bill Tower. Current estimates put each car somewhere between $6 and $8 million. Duntov sold them to the original privateers for between $3,000 and $6,000 each. Those numbers alone tell you that the market thinks something was left on the table. And the question that haunts every Corvette fan is obvious. What if Donner had said yes? What if 125 Grand Sports had rolled off a production line and into FIA GT classes around the world? The proof from actual racing is hard to argue with. 10 seconds a lap faster than Cobras at Nassau, a class sweep at Sebring, Penske winning every race he entered at Nassau 64, a power-to-weight ratio that made the Cobra look heavy. The airflow problems were fixable engineering issues, not basic design flaws. The overheating differentials were fixed in a weekend with borrowed coolers. Given a full budget and 125 approved cars, the Grand Sport would have fought Cobras in the classes where it actually belonged, not in prototype battles against cars it was never meant to face. Even Shelby, the man the Grand Sport was built to destroy, saw what Chevrolet had thrown away. The Grand Sport was the great Corvette racer that never was. Duntov probably pulled off about a quarter of what he was truly capable of, because GM's suits held him back at every turn. And the original Grand Sport plan, had it been allowed to run its course, could have changed the outcome of the entire Cobra program. The man who won the war knew he had been lucky. Duntov never bragged about the Grand Sport. By his own standards, it was a quick and dirty sledgehammer, something that never got the polish it deserved. Coming from a man whose standards were shaped in pre-war European racing circles, that probably just meant the cars could have been even better with proper backing. The results suggest the sledgehammer worked fine. In the end, the Corvette Grand Sport story comes down to one small, human detail. When Zora Arkus-Duntov was ordered to destroy 5 cars that stood for years of secret work and personal risk, he chose the cars over the company. He did not write a memo. He did not file a protest. He just quietly moved the cars to places where the 14th floor could not find them, and waited. He bet his career on 5 hand-built Corvettes. And 60 years later, all 5 still exist, each one worth more than a lifetime of paychecks, because one stubborn engineer from Brussels decided they were worth saving. Anyway, that is that. YouTube thinks you will like this video, so click it. And if you stuck around this long, subscribe.